a great day, I'm feeling good. Oh, the possibilities of what I could.
What happens when a blind man, a woman of color, and a child of immigrants get together to discuss how diversity, inclusion, and equity affect your business?
I'm moving fast. Oh, I'm optimistic.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Choose Inclusion podcast. I'm UB, and I am the Latino white guy of the group.
I'm Nina. I am the woman of color in the group.
And I'm Mike. I'm the blind guy.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Choose Inclusion podcast. We are doing our remote recording session due to COVID. I'm here with UB and Mike, as usual.
What's up?
Hello, hello.
So we have a special guest today, and I'm really excited to have Jabril on. Jabril Suleiman. He's the founder and CEO of Inclusion, and that's Inclusion with a Z. I met Jabril in Atlanta when I was at a tech conference that was focused on diversity and inclusion a couple of years ago, and I was blown away by the work that he's doing with his startup, and also honestly blown away by his background on how he kind of journeyed into creating a social impact startup as well. Inclusion is a platform that connects companies with skilled Black, Latinx, and women professionals for freelance projects. And so it's really making a huge impact in the diversity and inclusion space. And so I just want to say welcome, Jabril. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm fine.
So yeah, I was wondering if you could start off by just kind of telling us a little bit about yourself, your journey. I know that before you started Inclusion, you were already a successful entrepreneur. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, well, it starts off, I don't know, early, 20 years ago now. I literally started off as a small business owner in the wireless business, owned a few wireless stores, built that up until we were generating a few $1 million a year in sales. We experienced the problem though, where we were so busy that customers would call in over the phone to try to make their prepaid wireless payment. And that would jam up our phone lines, and they were waiting 15 minutes, depending on how many people were calling in to make a payment. And I said, well, man, geez, there has to be a better way for us to accept these payments because we want to accept them. Why can't we accept them the same way that T-Mobile or Verizon does through an automated phone system? And that's what I did. I built out an IVR system combined with a website, turned it into a little B2B SaaS business that provided a platform for other wireless stores across the country to accept payments. And that was my first venture into tech. I tell the story that, I posted the job on another freelance platform because I started out hiring freelancers and contractors, of course, to save money. And I posted a job that the guy, he had a lot of personal issues. So he ended up abandoning the job after doing development for a few months. And I reposted the job. Well, he built the site out in Java, and I reposted the job as JavaScript. And so the guy, one of the people that were bidding on the project, they looked at the code and they was like, this is Java, it's not JavaScript. And I'm like, well, aren't they the same thing? They're cousins, right? Because they both have Java in the name. So I didn't know anything about programming, code, technology. But here I am. I was building out. I had technical abilities, especially on the hardware side, and figuring out how to unlock phones and jailbreak phones and things like that. But I didn't know anything about, building a web application. So it was a great learning experience building the company. I was able to build the company up to $10 million in sales by 2015. Made the Inc. 5000 list. Ultimately exited the company. But during that time, I also worked with my hometown's African American Chamber of Commerce. Like I said, I hired freelancers and contractors. I was looking for diverse talent, and a lot of that diverse talent ended up overseas. In particular, I wanted to focus on hiring diverse talent here in the U.S., and it was just hard to do on the existing platforms. But then once I became a freelancer and other companies started reaching out to me looking for freelance talent, Black freelance web development talent, because of the press that I'm earned from the Inc. 5000 list. All of these experiences kind of came together. And eventually, even though I didn't work on inclusion right after that, I was working on another diversity focused kind of shopping platform. Ultimately, all of these experiences added up into Jabril Launch Inclusion. Let's get a diversity focused version of Upwork out there, and let's get it going and start connecting companies with talent. So here we are today.
Love it.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Love it. Yeah. So I love the, just the, get stuff done, mentality. Was your education in tech? What was your educational background, Jabril?
God and Google. People ask me that all this. I remember people used to walk into my wireless store and they're like, "You're 22 and you have this successful business, successful to them." And they would ask, "Are you some genius or something?" I mean, I was rated gifted when I was younger and all that good stuff. But, and I went to school for computer information systems, then changed the business and went back, kept going in and out, and out of school and so forth. But, ultimately that's what I attribute it to, God and Google. So, the ability the wherewithal to be able to go figure out and problem solve, and then being able to turn to, and use that knowledge that God gave me to, and that just, you know, inquisitiveness and ingenuity to go out and research it and figure out how to actually accomplish it.
So you got a master's in hustle, is what I'm hearing. You got a master's
Definitely.
in hustle. Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely
I
a
think
master's in figuring the ish out. So.
I think that's like the amazing thing about tech, right? Is that so many folks in the industry are self-taught, and I think it's largely because I don't want to say it's a great equalizer. There's still very much a very real digital divide happening in our country and in the world, but access to be able to learn things at your own pace in your own way, not having to pay $250,000 and accumulate debt through a traditional financial university institution. It's opened up a lot more doors and opportunities for, I think, underrepresented groups in particular.
Yeah, and the city that I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, you were in the military. You may have been one of the few black attorneys that were in Pensacola. But other than that, there was no presence in tech. So I was a rock star in Pensacola around tech, and I used it to my ability. I flaunted it. I was able to make so many connections from that, but I was able to also, generate a six-figure income for a time from my own efforts. And I think that, people have talents. I put this in my first pitch deck. There's an even distribution of talent, but there's an uneven distribution of opportunities to exercise that talent at many times. So, the people and that's ultimately what I want to be able to do, is provide the opportunity for people to exercise their talents through what we're doing with inclusion.
So, like, Jabril, how do you see everything that's happening right now is kind of just turning the world upside down, right? How do you feel like this is impacting those concepts of creating opportunities for people from these underrepresented groups?
So it's creating, over the past year or so, I've been talking about the fact that there's going to be this transition from full-time employees to contract contingent remote freelance. And the data shows that there's a lot of freelance groups out there and organizations that talk about this mass shift that's happening from companies hiring to people wanting a more flexible work-life balance and so forth. And I think everything that's happening around COVID, it's accelerating that. It's highlighting that conversation around remote work from home. And so it's also allowing us to shine as a company, because people are saying, "Oh crap! Like, we need a way to be able to connect to these opportunities in a more fluid way, and that opportunity really isn't out there right now." And that's part of what we want to be able to foster with the platform, with the ecosystem that we're building around it, is is to facilitate that connection. Now, right now, there's a lot of people that are losing jobs, and so those connections are still happening. But once the economy turns back around again, all of those people that have lost jobs, they're going to need to be hired again. And so we see it as an opportunity, of course, to facilitate this connection once that happens as well.
Can I ask you where? And I think, I mean, the answer is, in everything you've just talked about. But how did you come up with the name Inclusion with a Z?
Anytime you come up with an idea, for anyone who's listening, there's a few things that you have to check. You have to check, does it make sense? Does it sound right? You have to check to make sure if it's trademarked. You have to check to make sure that there's a domain name out there.
Isn't that true?
Yeah.
So
right?
true.
So, and so I go into this, deep state of meditation and start just randomly generating words in my head and tying it. How does this tie to my mission? How does it tie to my mission? So the company behind Inclusion is Spend With, and that was actually a platform that we were working on before we pivoted into Inclusion. And Spend With, it personified what we wanted to do as far as a cultural shopping platform. Spend with veteran-owned businesses, spend with Black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and so forth. And so I wanted to do the same thing, evoke that same emotion. And so, it ultimately came out to Inclusion, but okay, inclusion.com was taken, of course, and Inclusion is one of those names. It's almost, I guess, it's technically 1.5 syllables or something like that, 1 syllable. And so it's just through that process and figuring out, okay, it's not trademarked. Okay, there's a domain or there's a .co, but I have to buy the .com later. But oh, look, the .com is really not that expensive. So I can save up for the .com too. So now we have the .co and .com. So it's just going through that process, and it all worked out with Inclusion with the Z. So some people say Inclusion. No, it's not fancy. Not French mustard or anything or whatever.
Well, no, that could be your new line of French perfume, Inclusion,
Inclusion. So
for all freelancers.
it's Inclusion.
So
That's how I came up with it.
Jabril, I hear a lot of the language in and around, ethnic diversity, obviously gender equity. I'm not sure if you were told. So I'm the token blind guy on this podcast, and so I very much am into the professionals with disability type community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious on what your experience, what's your background with that demographic.
Well, so a lot of my focus has been as a business owner, a big fish in a small pond in Pensacola. First of all, I was the example. I was the example business person in Pensacola. Once I went into tech, well, that was as a small business owner. Then going into tech with my own startup, and then I became the example business / startup founder, tech guru for Pensacola. And so I was always kind of thrust into leading by example in those ways through my natural efforts. But then I got a call from a young lady that worked for us in our wireless stores as our accountant / bookkeeper / HR person. Everybody, she took over the African American Chamber of Commerce that was there in Pensacola, and she wanted me to come on as a board member to help rebuild the organization. Served in that role for 2 years as one of the board members. I mean, through that time, there was a great getting to understand how politics comes into play, but also just meeting other organizations, women business groups, the Hispanic business groups, and understanding that everyone is working on their own initiative to, of course, raise the tide, right? And I think that that's important, and so that became my mission in trying to understand how to provide some form of economic empowerment, for the businesses that we were serving, economic development. And so, that became a mission of mine, in order to do that. And I think that as my career transitioned from one to the next, I think that now I'm at a point where that passion is using the experiences that I've been able to gain and growing a business and being out there and as a mediator and an evangelist for black owned businesses, women owned businesses. I mean, just and understanding the disparities around that, it all just plays into that now, right? And so that's my background.
No, I love it. So when you hear, I mean, because you know this, like just being almost inadvertently being a leader within diversity and inclusion space, being a black business owner, right? Like all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
now, like you didn't sign up for that role. However, you know that your name is automatically thrown into that role, right? Because we
Mm-hmm.
just you just got to look at the list of ethnic CEOs in the Fortune 1000 space. I mean, it is to say it's scarce is an understatement. And then you go into gender. Don't even try to look for somebody with a disability in the C-suite in the Fortune 1000 space, right? So, with that, I mean, do you embrace that? Do you love the challenge? What are your thoughts in and around kind of being a leader in the D&I space almost inadvertently?
I mean, I enjoy it. I think that it's we need leaders. And I think that to a certain extent, I've been conditioned, byproduct, uh, as a byproduct, is just for me, just trying to, of course, uh, generate a business and generate income, generate revenues and all, and grow a company. And it's been a byproduct of that, being a leader. And so, it's something that I embrace, and I want to be able to use that to continue to grow in the efforts and what we're doing, even in social impact, and what we're doing and what we're providing with inclusion.
Thanks for listening to the Choose Inclusion podcast. Make sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can see closed captioning for this podcast on our YouTube channel. You can find us online on our website, chooseinclusion.com, and contact us on Twitter @ChooseInclusion.